that we've got about 16 people with us tonight online. We have a little group here in the IMO conference room as well. Welcome everybody to our October board meeting. Thank you for joining us. We always appreciate public being here to talk with us on public comment and to hear what the agenda has to offer. So without further ado, I will review tonight's agenda. And as you all probably know, Board Docs is the place where we provide all of our agendas, and we have been keeping those very up to date and trying to be as detailed as possible on that site with anything regarding the agenda. So hopefully you can follow along with that. So we will call things to order here. 6:37. And the plan for this evening is to take public comment, make sure to approve the September 12th minutes. And then we have the principals report. I cannot talk today. That includes a number of things in terms of building updates, operational updates. I know we're going to talk the rental agreement a bit. We do have discussion and vote on handbook amendments, all compiled into one item there. Goals updates. I know we have an exciting presentation that has been prepared for us by our IMHS student ambassadors. So we are excited about that. Topic of deep dive discussion tonight is around finances. So we'll spend some time with that. Welcome, Kevin. Philip, anything you'll want to share there? Obviously, we were talking finances a lot tonight, so you just kind of keep rolling right into that with the usual finance update. Sarah, for PTO, we'll have you in there. Anything from our committees and anything that we'd like to do with future interested board members. We can talk about that too. So I do believe also that Brett, will you be somewhat facilitating tonight in Stacey's absence?
Yes.
So, okay, great. All righty. Sound okay? Any changes to our agenda? All righty. So we will go ahead and take public comment. And again, our guidelines around public comment are that public has up to 3 minutes to comment and share anything pertaining to the agenda we have to discuss tonight. So if you'd like to make a public comment, you can type your name into the chat. Is probably the easiest way. And that'll let us know that you'd like to comment. Okay, we have quite a group this evening. Anyone out there for public comment going once? Going twice. And sold. Okay, we're moving on. So our next item is to review the September 12th meeting minutes that are available to you all in Board Docs. So please let me know any comments, questions, suggestions, edits to those minutes.
None for me.
Looking okay?
Looks good.
Yeah, they look good to me.
I'd make a motion to approve the September board meeting minutes as presented.
Second.
Second. All in favor? Aye. Any
Aye.
opposed? All right, motion carries. Thank you.
Okay. All right, over to you, Heather.
All right, so the first thing that we're going to talk about is the rental agreement. I have sent that to you all to review, and Marissa, thank you for some of your suggestions and updates to that. One of the things and Marissa, if you want to share, I don't want to speak for you on items that you had suggestions on. Do you want me to share it? Would you?
Either way.
Go ahead, you can share.
Okay. Yeah, it was just a quick blurb. So I just referenced, I think, how do you pronounce it? Ison Community Center. I drive by it like every day, like taking my daughter to school. But it's an Ocoee, community center. And so I just like looked at their page and referenced to get a feel for pricing. And I thought the pricing was in alignment, except I thought the classroom could be $50 per hour, not every 2 hours. So that was just in alignment what I saw of their spacing and kind of the spacing of our classrooms. Yeah, and then just a couple things I noticed that they had, like, they will just deduct from the deposit if there was, extra time for the custodian or if there was damage. So I just thought that was a good thing to add. And then also, I didn't think we had anything in there about cancellations and, sometimes you don't want people to back you in a corner and then they cancel last minute. So I think that'd be another little nit to add that would be helpful.
Okay.
Good.
Perfect.
I think that was everything.
What's your kind of vision, or what's you three or guys' vision on this as a, as an opportunity for us? Where do you guys think we can take this, and what do you want to do with it?
Well, I know we've actually already had a parent to reach out about renting the cafeteria at the high school for their dance team. So we did have that. And then we've been approached by the I-9. I'm looking at you, Jay, looking at I-9 about our soccer field rental. I got an opportunity to meet with Kevin, someone we discussed through this of, we want it to be an income rental, but we wanted to also make sure that we're not shortchanging ourselves, that it's going to be worth.
That's what I was going to ask. Like, do you see this being something that generates an amount of revenue, and like, what kind of overhead do we need to put into managing it? Does it make sense for us to
go through with that?
Yeah.
I think we could make revenue off of the soccer portion of that, probably more than renting out of the facility itself. But there are some logistics that we're going to have to work through. For example, I know Kevin and I talked about, like, even the restroom. Do you open up the restroom here on the main campus, or do you say to I-9 you have to bring in your own porta potty? Like, what does that look like? So those are some things that we do have to work through to see if it's even cost effective for us to do it. That's why I know they originally mentioned like the soccer field at $50 an hour. Well, that's not worth it for us. At $50 an hour.
How, like, would that be something they used every day or once a week?
It would be on the weekends.
On the weekends.
The way Brendan had talked, it was on the weekends, like a Saturday, Sunday thing. They just need a space to play.
Yeah. I mean, I think I like the idea. We've always kind of said we hope there'd be some opportunity in the future to have an additional revenue stream, and I'm sure you can appreciate looking for an additional revenue stream. Right? So
I think that was my discussion a little bit back and forth with you, is just kind of what's the threshold of the number to make it worth our time. I mean, we are taking on risk by, putting it out there and, potential for issues and things. So, where do we feel like the return on investment is? And again, I mentioned maybe I'm looking at from my kind of more corporate viewpoint, but like, I felt like the number needed to go up. Like, I mean, I know these are, school groups and things like that. We don't want to overcharge, but we want to make it worth our time.
Absolutely.
To do this.
So several of the larger districts, so like OCPS and Osceola County, they use a program called Facilitron, which is basically a way for outside organizations to rent facilities on those campuses. And in Facilitron, it identifies like a per hour rental fee for the specific location. It's differentiated by the size of the space, but they also build in a percentage for like utility cost. They build in a percentage or a flat fee depending on what's been agreed upon for the custodial portion. So making sure that there's upkeep there. I don't know if that's something that we wanted to consider too, where maybe it doesn't necessarily change the overall total, but just to kind of
Break it apart.
spell it out that way.
Mhm.
Because, sometimes we need a staff person there. I'm thinking like when someone is utilizing the IMHS cafeteria,
Mhm.
we would need a staff member present
Mhm.
while that's happening.
Mhm.
And so like, if that's a custodian or if that's somebody just there kind of supervising, they would certainly be compensated for their time, I would
Right.
think. So I don't know if we need to go into that level of detail, but that's just what I have seen
Mhm.
happen in the past, and plenty of organizations, even with prices that were higher than this, were willing to pay.
Mhm.
Now we don't have like the gym facilities, which is one of the ones that was the most popular.
Mhm.
But there's lots of different organizations. So you mentioned the dance group, churches. We've been approached at the high school campus by at least 3 different churches looking for meeting space.
Mhm.
So that's something that maybe we would want to consider as well.
Yeah.
And we don't really have space here, on this property, that we can do that now, the multi-purpose
Right.
is being used, so.
Yeah, honestly, the soccer field's probably about the only area, unless somebody wanted to rent out a classroom for like, they were doing some type of course or something, but I doubt that, but it's gonna be mostly the high school, probably cafeteria is what the biggest approach is. I do have in there that, custodians will be assigned as needed, and that it's gonna be overtime pay that they would be responsible for paying in addition to the rental fee. But
Is there any impact with insurance or anything like that we have to deal with?
Yeah, so I know the form talks about we may require insurance, and if we do, here's what it'll be. And we can talk further about identifying when we're gonna require insurance, and if we're ever not, I think normally we would want to.
right.
But also run that past our risk management group and make sure that there's nothing special that they're looking for again.
Mhm. I did reach out to, I'm trying to think, Philadelphia, but I've not heard back. I need to reach back out to them to say, hey, is there anything that would, with our own insurance, mess that up?
So we're gonna look for special event coverages for anybody that's renting space. Something like I-9 is gonna have coverage.
Yeah.
Mhm.
But we would want to be named as additional insured. They can get that covered easily.
Mhm.
It's something they do every time they run a soccer field, so they're used to it.
Mhm.
But I think the rule is we require insurance unless
Okay.
there's some reason that we're not for some particular thing,
Right.
which would probably be limited to school-related
Mhm.
functions, even if they're not school-sponsored functions.
Right.
So perhaps if a student club or something was in a way that they weren't gonna get free space for whatever reason, needing a soccer field.
Right. Well, and that's why just what I've dealt with in the past, when it says if required. So for example, if Girl Scouts wanted to come or Boy Scouts wanted to rent out, we didn't always necessarily require it then, but if it was
But
somewhere
they're
else.
gonna have it.
Yeah, well, that's true. So should we
Those
take out the
organizations
if
have it.
required and just put insurance will be required?
Well, I didn't mind saying it that way, as long as the people on our end administering it know when
Mhm.
it's required, and maybe we could say that it's required unless an exemption is granted for some reason.
Okay,
I would start with the idea that it's always required, and then
and then okay,
I would say, I would make it required anytime we hosted events in the past that
Mhm.
we just did. So I wouldn't mess with that. Number 2, I would do probably flat fee for the cleaning.
Mhm.
So whatever, the hourly rate is 3-4 hours, just put that
Mhm.
buffer there. I agree with that. And of course that, if deemed outside of normal scope of cleaning, we can assess a special cleaning charge, so no one trashes it, and obviously you'll be welcome back or whatever. And then the only thing about the classrooms is that, was that requested? Because the only reason I wonder that is because it's not a lot of money, even $50 an hour, number one. Number 2, I know they're pretty personalized by the teachers and stuff. They might be sensitive to that. outsiders in there.
Right. And we can definitely
Yeah.
remove that. That was just, I was trying to cover what other areas would somebody ever want to rent. But if we want to say classrooms are off limits, we can say, I mean, that's,
It's more of like, if we're gonna have a custodian or facilities person go out to get it set up for 3 hours, you know, I don't know if $150 is.
worth it.
And we'll have to
assuming-
figure a way to shut off access to the rest of the building because there is no natural break there.
Yeah.
I'm assuming like any application that you get, like approving it's at your discretion, like if it's
Yeah.
an event or a group that you don't think's in line with what you would want happening at the school, you
Right.
just say no, like.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
look,
can I
I-
ask a question? Are we just discussing, do we need to vote on this? I know it's not listed as a vote.
Yeah,
I know
mean,
we're kind of preliminarily discussing it, so.
Yeah.
I'd be in favor of you guys having a policy and plan, testing it out and
And seeing how it goes.
see how it works and.
Okay.
If you think there's opportunities, like that's what I was wondering, is this something we think there's a good opportunity here? Would we go do some marketing for this and put it out? I don't know, I'm sure there's places you can put your space up for, for rent,
Rent.
list it somewhere.
I mean, the high school cafeteria and the soccer field be a slam dunk. There's nothing in the area,
Yeah.
you know.
We do need to figure out, you mentioned cutting off that space. We do need to figure out at the high school, how can we block that area? Old school, they had the gates that would
Yeah.
across, but something that blocks off the rest of the building and not just, so if they're in the cafeteria, they stay in the cafeteria. They don't go past into the academic side of things.
Are all those doors locked on the weekend for the classrooms and bathrooms and everything?
Yeah, I guess we could do that, is just lock all the.
So I mean, I
Other than
guess
the
at the end of the day,
hallways.
they're just gonna run the hallways and the stairwell
Yeah,
if someone did.
But you don't want that.
You don't want that
Yeah.
either. Yeah.
I remember when I was in Cub Scouts, the big metal gate was
Yeah.
very effective. So I know that even by city code, events of a certain size require security. And I mean, I don't care how high our rates have to go. I want to make sure we're capturing all the expenses. And if it means we have someone who's being paid $20 an hour to sit there and monitor, I'd rather do that and charge an extra $100 than not do it.
and that's something we could just say, that there has to be a staff member on campus and here's their rate.
And maybe it can be someone who's working at night anyway. I don't know if we have
Yeah.
cleaning people or something like that. That should be there.
Yeah.
One thought with classrooms is if there's a teacher I wouldn't want anybody, as teacher Kevin wouldn't want outside
Right.
groups in Montessori.
Mhm.
But teacher Kevin might be willing to make the sacrifice if part of the fee was being split for classroom supplies or something like that,
Mhm.
allocated to my classroom. So I don't know if there's any opportunity there.
How do you feel about just
Airbnb their classrooms.
Airbnb? We talked a little bit about multiple church groups wanting, how do you feel about renting?
I don't think we're allowed to rent to any religious organizations because of the bond, right? Is that not something in the bond? I thought we talked about this.
You might be right. I mean, it's
Last
certainly
spring,
something we'd have to
maybe.
go look into, but. Cause I remember having this conversation, but I know like at least Orange County rents out their facilities to churches. So I didn't. think it was
I
like a
did
district policy.
go through it. I didn't see that per se, but that doesn't mean that,
I could
that
be
document
right
is
on.
hundreds of pages.
Yeah, commented on that before, but then I also feel like she would always ask herself, but how is Orange County doing it? Because they're on the same issues and then she would.
But I think it's
go through
it's
it.
just
She
the
could
bond.
run
It's
through.
not so much that we're a public school. I think it was called out in the bond, but you've read it. I don't know.
Yeah.
I seem to remember Patrice mentioning that
You
a
can't-
long time ago.
You can't use more than 5% of whatever you bought with your bonds for private uses. Nor can you pay back your bonds more than 5% with money you get from private uses. Even if it's a charitable organization that is considered a private use when you're doing these calculations. So it doesn't matter if it's 501c3, just like we are, it's a different 501c3. Even renting to the federal government is considered a private use, so. Those are the thresholds you have to look at. I believe that you wouldn't inquire as to what kind of things they'll be saying, free speech purposes, or what kind of religion they might be. If you're making a space available for rent on the same basis for all members of the public who would request the use, as long as the activities occurring in the space aren't prohibited by our policy. So I don't care if you're a church or not, you can't do pyrotechnics. I don't care if you're a church or not, you can't drink alcohol. But really, it's none of our business what kinds of things you're talking about at your meeting, I don't think. So while we wouldn't dedicate something or give away any of our bond proceeds or facilities to a religious organization, because it's a religious organization, without knowing anything further, I would think that as long as it's available on the same basis to other groups, that you could lease it to those groups.
What's the 5% then of proceeds, like? Is
So
that
if we
5%
spend-
of our income?
Yeah, I mean, it's a complicated analysis that there's lawyers that do nothing but this section of the tax code, but if you built a 10-story building and leased out more than one floor of it, that would be a 10 use. If you lease out one floor of it for 1 year out of your 30-year bond, that's okay, because they take time into consideration as well. It's a complicated analysis, but I gotta think if all we're doing is a soccer field.
We're not gonna get to 5%. 5% of anything is a pretty big number for us, like,
But if all you had was a soccer
we need to be
field,
making tens or
And you did it every
thousands
weekend.
of $1,000 to make it.
Or if we rented the whole top floor of the high school for multiple years running. You know,
well,
but
it's
that's
funny,
like.
you
full
know,
on
if
rent
you rent out your
but-
whole facility for every Saturday, that's more than 5%.
Yeah.
So it does add up.
5% of your use or 5% of your income?
Well, you got it both.
Is it both?
But if it was just like on the high school side, if it was just dedicated to that cafeteria space, which is, it only represents, I don't know what percentage of the total, 15% of the total campus space.
And it's not per facility, it's per bond issue. So you look at both campuses when you're doing that.
That'd be-
I think
Oh,
we're
okay.
good. I just brought that up because that's where your ceiling is. It's not
Okay.
necessarily the religious use that gets you. It's
Okay.
the fact that religious use counts as private use. You're
Okay.
adding it up and putting it up. Private use like you do.
Yeah. And we may not have any, I haven't had anybody to come to me since I've started, but
Yeah, I like the idea of some income, so, you
Yeah.
know, I'd say you guys test it out and.
okay, we'll go
see
back
what the demand
through.
Looks like, if it's profitable and if it's something you think you'd want to push further on.
Mhm.
And what the dollars offset the headaches.
Well, that's the
Yeah.
big
Gotta
Does
thing.
it help to reduce
Gotta be
other
cost
headaches? Does it
effective.
get more money around or does it increase the headaches? Because now you're
That's
trying to
where I
figure
kind
out
of back
who
to
and
is,
what,
are we sure it's worth the ROI? And I'm
Right.
kind of agreeing with that. The classrooms might,
Yeah,
I don't know.
We can take
maybe
the
check with
classrooms off.
teachers,
I'm
but
in,
yeah.
I'm
I don't know.
inclined to have your policy there and you can also then kind of determine, you know, right, like the who and what is it that it's going for.
Mhm.
So yeah, exactly. You might not want them in the classrooms. You might be like, yeah, no, we're not, but you might have a class, like a more of an empty room at the high school. That's like, yeah, this is totally fine. Or even the library at the high school might not be quite so personalized kind of thing. So then
So-
your classroom rate would still be nice to have around because it's already included in the policy
That's
instead of
true,
it being an
yeah.
exception.
covering it.
Easier to have it in policy and never use it than to not have it mentioned in
Mhm.
policy and have that time where you're like, oh yeah, that would have fit well, but now what do I
Yeah.
what do I do with this?
Well, and it does say on that one, like usage at the discretion of the building principal, so they would decide what that looks like. So what I'll do is I will make some of these changes with admin and then Kevin, is it okay if I send it to you to review again, just to make sure legally we're okay? And then I think the biggest one that's right now really wants to know the cheerleading group, of course, but then the soccer. They want to be able to, for their next round of season, to see what that looks like.
I didn't know, that application form kind of had some terms in it,
Mhm.
some rules of the road for rental. And I didn't know if you had in mind another document that was more of a contract, or if you wanted to, or if you were intending that would be it, kind of combined into one.
Well, I didn't know, one was a policy and one was the application, but I don't care if we put them together. I just went online and.
Well, it looked
stole
like that application would be the only thing they would ever fill out, right?
Right.
And everybody would sign that.
Mhm.
So if there's not a separate form that comes later after you apply and get approved,
So then we need to have
we
a
might
call.
might have a few more things to beef up that application.
Okay,
I thought it looked good though. It was
Mhm.
the right kinds of stuff. And
We spent a pretty penny on that soccer field, so. it'd be
Yeah.
nice
Yeah.
To see some use of it.
right. Okay, I'll do that and then I'll send it to you and. Edit. Okay.
I know from all the conversations I've seen, reoccurring groups tend to be the better ones to rent to, because when they do something that annoys you, they have a reason to fix it
Right.
inside their own group, because then they don't get to come back.
Right.
So
Yeah.
those one-offs that are more likely to be a little bit more problematic.
And the other thing is too, we may not have staff that, like a custodian that wants to stay and work on the weekend or whatever, and then that's another, then we wouldn't be able to do it.
Teacher Kevin interested in overtime.
Teacher Kevin.
One
wants
thing
it.
that
Kevin's
cities,
hourly rate. might be
But a little
different.
one thing cities do with their facilities is require the, depending on what kind of event it is, you can require the event to hire either a cop or a off-duty cop or a private security guard.
Mhm.
And those people will tend to be responsible, and it's not out of our pocket.
Okay. I like that.
I think you had custodial / staff.
Yeah,
So we at least have the flexibility for who it is.
yeah, okay. Anything else on that, on the rental?
So sending to Kevin for review and then maybe potentially just testing it with some of those interested groups
Right.
that you already have
Right.
going. Okay.
Perfect. Some other news, as far as operational, so the construction, we did have 2 more invoices to come in from the grant. Prior to paying those final invoices, it appears that we had approximately 131,000 left in, the contingency for all of the construction. So as soon as we pay those last few, we'll have that final number. Every time I think it's the final, then a couple more come in. So, not really sure when the final will be the final, but hoping it's very, very soon. We do need to kind of talk through how we want to move forward with the science lab and the portables. Some information on the portables. I reached back out to Mobile Modular because they were supposed to have, well, they had their general contractor to come out for groundwork. He indicated that they are still struggling to find the water tie-ins, that they came back out and over on that side behind the Casa building. And so he was going to meet again with his general contractor to see if they have any a status update for that. It worries me that if it's that hard right now, I can't imagine what the cost is going to be for groundwork, but so I am a little worried. I'm going to be honest, after looking through the budget, I really think we probably need to not move on the portables at this point, even if the money is left. Let's say we have $100,000 left over and that would pay for the groundwork and like the setup cost. I don't know right now with the $5,000 monthly payment for rental plus utilities, that can't come out of our contingency money. And so I just don't know right now if we are in a position that we ought to do that. That doesn't mean we can't come back to that, but right now, what I would like to do is meet with Kathy and us sit down and talk about what could we do, plan B. I know we talked about it a little bit about when middle school moves over, maybe opening a couple classrooms down on the lower level and creating a restroom. So to kind of get the cost of that again, I know that maybe that cost was given last year and it was higher than expected, but maybe we could reach back out and just see what that looks like. As far as the science lab, we did get in some of the cost on that. The plumbing is going to cost $32,000, a little over. Electric was almost $14,000. And then I was talking to Jared at somewhere we had read a number from W&J. Was it 80 total? 89, something like that
Yeah,
total.
there's permitting and there's
Yeah.
quite a few other things in there. So I remember 80 to 85. I can't find that.
Yeah. Yep, the document has disappeared, but we did for the science lab. And so I guess where it comes down to as a board, we definitely cannot do both. We cannot do the science lab and reconstruct the CASA classrooms. So I think we have to talk about what's our number one priority. and then save for the other.
Truck the cost of classrooms.
Well, like if we had to put them here in our building, we would have to add another restroom.
And that's then would free up
Yes,
the multi-purpose room.
yeah.
Okay.
Because I don't think, and I don't want to speak for Kathy, I don't think our long-term could be to keep students in that.
It's not practical.
Yeah,
In the multi-purpose.
Yeah.
yeah.
I mean, it's working beautifully right now. Those classrooms are doing great,
Mhm.
but definitely adds hardship around testing and things
Yeah.
like that base. And
Mhm.
so, I mean, honestly, if we had to make it work, we could, but it's not ideal.
Yeah.
What if you used, totally just brainstorming on here, so shut it down if you want to. Because you would have those classrooms that you'd be moving the students to, if you set those up as the flex space.
Mhm.
And then that would, you said, it's not manage your multipurpose building, it's your multipurpose classrooms. Would that be easier or?
Gotcha.
But when we move middle school, next school year, right,
Yeah.
we're opening up how much space up here?
Four
Four,
suites.
four suites.
Mhm.
So with those two classes, they obviously can't move into those suites, but do they not fill some of that vacancy somewhere if you're Tetrising
Our
things
challenge
around?
is that we can't bring children first grade and younger upstairs at all.
Right, I get that, but you could Tetris some things around if you had to maybe, but I don't know, but.
Yeah.
What's gonna go into those four suites?
So, we are looking at potentially a media room / library. The business office will move up there because that would be repurposed as a classroom. I would anticipate moving the music room to the art room space and moving the art room upstairs. We'd have to hire a part-time. We've done this before, art teacher for first grade downstairs. And then we'd have one still we could use as a flex space.
And we move
Challenge.
those classrooms out of there, or that would not include moving those classrooms out of there?
That would include moving those classrooms out of there.
And even if you made those purpose, your first graders and kindergartners couldn't use the multi-purpose
Right.
space then, which then continues some of that hardship.
Right.
If only you could go upstairs. It's so nice.
I know.
Maybe we put in a few fire poles,
It's really just a fire, isn't it?
fire code.
Yeah.
I mean, my opinion would be, frankly, we should probably hold on either one of those decisions at this point until we
Right.
probably get through a couple of months of some, getting a budget renewed and,
Mhm.
get a few months of some actuals behind us to make sure we're progressing in the right direction. And we,
Right.
solve some of our headache from that perspective.
We're not
before
gonna
we
wanna
take
do
on the
that.
next capital spend.
We're not
We
gonna
don't
wanna do
wanna
that construction middle of school year anyways, so.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And how does this sync with the overall move plans? I mean, is it better to just simply allow that to take place? And hold on this for now? And just do a revisit because we know that the move is gonna be happening and there could be
Right.
new learnings or
Mhm.
new discoveries through that process that.
Right.
help
And I
us
think there's
decide
so much
next year.
more than just, if I think about bringing the portables in, we may have the money to do the groundwork and all of those kind of things, but we have to think about those at always expenses, always the utilities, those kind of things, the upkeep.
Mhm.
That's always going to be reoccurring each month. So we do have to think through that. Now, a lot of times that brings income too, that the facility, but I do think right now until we get everything revamped with our finances, maybe holding off on that, just letting that money sit there for right now.
That's what I would think, just to maybe table it for the moment.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would certainly be my preferences.
Okay. So that's what we'll do for right now. The only other thing that we really have is some action plan update, just to kind of let you know where we are. I actually have a meeting in the morning with our admin team to review all of September's actions for the curriculum and instruction, the communication, and the student social emotional, yes. And so, sorry, I had that up in front of me and totally just lost it. Just to give you a little update, well, tomorrow we're going to talk about the instruction piece. We're going to look at PM1 testing data and kind of talk about next steps of where we want to go. And also, I know Kathy has already put this out that we had some parents a little bit concerned about that PM1 data, but understanding that that's the end goal. And so making sure we're on track for the end goal for that. And then working through MTSS as well. So we'll discuss that tomorrow. Communication, I had scheduled last Wednesday, our first Montessori task force meeting. A medical emergency arose and I was not able to conduct that. So that will be rescheduled. So we'll get that started. Website design, already met with Stephen and mocked up kind of a draft of what I would like for a website. He is going to put that together, and then I'm going to meet with admin and we're going to kind of go through and look at that and vet it, and then make sure we're having everything legally that has to be on there, and then put that out for input to our staff to ensure that, you know, it's user friendly for them. And then hopefully by Christmas that go live. So that's kind of where we are on the website. On the merge, if you want to talk a little bit, I know you're probably going to do this in your regular talk too, about your steps for middle school, high school.
So one of the first things that we're going to do tomorrow actually is have a joint meeting of the high school and middle school team to start brainstorming. The vision really for next school year and beyond is to separate into secondary 1 and secondary 2 groupings. So secondary 1 would be 7th, 8th, and 9th grade. Secondary 2, 10th through 12th. And so really the task of the teaching team starting tomorrow and then progressing through the rest of the school year is to really capture what is unique about each of those different groups. So what will be unique about secondary 1, what's slightly different about secondary 2, and then what's the common ground. So the things that we will share as 7 through 12 campus, but then how do we keep those groups somewhat distinct? And so that's kind of our first step in really thinking about and me trying to get input from the staff on what they envision that looking like. Because I've had a lot of questions and some uncertainty, right, about what that will look like for next year. So that'll be our first step. And then from there, kind of taking those ideas, seeing where all the different pieces will fit together, and then starting to think based on the needs of our students, you know, what our course offerings will look like, and where the classes will meet, and all of the logistics pieces, which have to happen later once you kind of have, you know, the bigger picture, then you kind of get down to the more detail oriented aspects. So that's where we are for that.
Do you expect to have those kind of things done where you've got that first pass at the course offerings and kind of what you just talked about? What's the time frame around that?
So we generally don't start requesting input from students for their interest in courses until February. So we will probably need to shift that up a little bit this year, just because there's a lot more to be done in preparation. And some of it will be discussions too about what exactly the programs will look like, because the high school program as it is right now is not going to look exactly like it does now next year, nor will the middle school program exactly like it does now next year. One, because we're combining those groups, but two, just because there will be a need for some revision.
Yeah, the big thing I think we learned in the last school year was, you know, there's going to be quite a bit of change management needed, but just strictly with our community to start to socialize what this change looks like, what what's the structure of secondary 1, the concepts of those, and what, to your point, what's the high school look like today and what's different about it in the future, and same with the middle school. So, you know, I don't know what you guys have started to think about in terms of timeline of when we want to start having this series of communications with the, you know, with the broader community, but, you know, probably beginning of the year, like the latest would be a good time to start some series of steps to get us towards, you know, closer to the end of the year and you know, because
Yeah, we talked a little bit already about that, because
we'll
that's
get a lot higher.
right,
hotter
yeah.
Once we get closer to there, and we want to be way out in front.
Yeah,
of
I
this
guess
time.
just to quickly tag onto that, it's like, what is the master plan?
Yeah.
For the, all the different elements, like maybe we should dedicate time at one of these meetings to have an overview of that, whenever that is ready.
Yeah.
And then, that at a high level, right?
Yeah.
But then knowing that, much more to come, but these are all the elements we're considering, right?
Right.
Facilities, the courses, this, so.
Yeah, so there is a plan, so, obviously our first step will be meeting with staff, kind of getting feedback from staff. I think that's an important first step. And this will be the first time since, I guess, pre-planning, we've had, the middle high school teachers meeting together. They're really looking forward to that. I think they've had some opportunities to kind of exchange some ideas, but this will really be a chance for us to gather and to kind of spell out in more detail what that vision could be for next year, and then beyond. I would say I definitely am planning for a couple meetings just with the community once we have kind of a more solid structure, skeleton, framework of what things will look like. The tricky part is, and I did tell this to both groups of teachers, just the nature of planning for the start of a school year. There's always things that will be in flux, right? So even telling teachers, hey, this is what your schedule will look like, certain things will change. And so I want to be able to offer at least a starting point. But I think that's still a few months out. But once we get to that point, I definitely want us to then have some meetings, have parents come in, ask questions, be able to for them to get a better feel of, what to expect, what the students can expect.
You can do that in a series of steps. So
Right.
you're getting your details narrowed down from the highest level, start to share, let's say at a high level, here's where we're at. And we're going to come back to you guys in 60, 90 days and be able to share our next level of that. For the end of the school year, bring you to the next level of detail of what we think. And then probably over the summer, that's when you'll really button down all the real details. And,
Yeah.
that's normal course of
Yeah, and I
business. I
think
think.
it's important to be open to those questions that you say, we haven't figured that one out yet, right?
Yeah.
We're
Yeah.
interested in, ask us more along those lines. Let's jot those down. Those are what
For
we're kind
sure.
of thinking of. Maybe even share,
For sure.
here's things we have in this direction, a little bit of feedback. I think the areas we've gotten ourselves in trouble in the past the most is actually trying to provide a clear vision when we didn't know exactly where we were going. And then people get worked up about those things that we haven't actually figured out yet. which
They're going to come
can
with a
end up
laundry
with
list
a
of detailed
Right.
questions they want answers to. And we're
Did
gonna-
anyone think about this? Like,
Yeah.
actually, it's a good question, but
Yeah.
now I feel like I can't say that we're going to, because it feels like it's backing off where we already made a decision. So
Yeah, and that's a lot of what I've gotten recently is like wanting to know more detailed information. So like big picture, I think, and I'm speaking really just on behalf of the staff members that I've met with.
Mhm.
So like big picture, they kind of get the gist of what I've communicated out for how I see this program progressing. And so now they're starting to shift their focus to, okay, well, what does that specifically mean for me? How is that going to impact me specifically in my role? And so that's why I think it's important to have the teachers meet together to kind of talk about like, what should the student experience be for our secondary 1 students, and how should that be different from what the experience will be for our secondary 2 students? What are some of the things that we feel like should be common practices across the board? There are certain things that will certainly need to be that way. Policies that will need to be in place that will be enforceable from 7th grade all the way through 12th grade. And then some things that need to vary just based on where the students are developmentally, what's appropriate for 7th, 8th, and 9th graders, what's appropriate for 10th through 12th graders. So we're kind of in those early stages of planning for that. And I'm really looking forward to hearing the feedback from the staff, because the few ideas that have been shared with me already, kind of just in individual conversations, have been really solid. And I think collectively we'll be able to have, a lot of great ideas come out of these discussions that will help prepare us well for the start of next school year. And, you know, a very different type of program. I want to retain as much of the best things of each of those programs as possible. So all of the great things. And in my first meeting with the middle school staff, I said, well, what are the things that are working really well in middle school that we want to retain? And I've asked the same thing of the high school teachers. So, so I think if we can focus on that, like keeping the best of the best of what we're doing already really well, that's going to just make the program in total that much better.
And we do have, just so you all know, I think you have access to it, the action plan for the merge, and the details. And so after they started with the staff, and so that'll be for the month of October, and then go into how are we going to start communicating that out to parents? What does that look like? What's the board meetings look like? The goal would be that we really start talking about transition, like in the nitty gritty, starting in January, and then by springtime, having some opportunities for them to start merging and almost like community nights and those kind of things. So that is part of our action plan. And
Where to
we'll
find that action
I
plan?
don't know.
I think I shared that with you all in the very beginning, but I can
You did, but
reshare.
I didn't know if is that a living document? or
Yeah,
something?
that's the living document, the IMO. It's called IMO 2023-24
I
action
didn't know
plan.
if you sent us like a working.
Oh.
You know what? I may have just shared that actual. I can.
Not like an actual.
Yeah, I'll
25
share
or
the.
Something like that.
It may have been in the detail. This is part of the goals when we were.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
yes.
and
So
maybe
I
the
will.
detail on there, yeah.
Yeah, if it's on SharePoint or wherever.
Yeah, I'll
just
get it,
send the
make
link
sure you
back
all have
out.
it, yeah. Yeah, so, and so as we go through that, we'll be able to start communicating that out more, yeah, so,
Sounds like you probably already have then what I was thinking about,
yeah,
started mapping that out. So that's cool.
yeah. Anything else? I'll just let you go ahead and finish the high school. Anything else you have?
The biggest thing that we have kind of coming up tomorrow actually is SAT. It was our plan to have our 12th graders take SAT and 10th and 11th graders take PSAT. College board decided that they were going to transition PSAT to a digital format this year. They're having a lot of issues with that. So we will have it sometime before the end of October, which is when the window closes. But just some issues that we couldn't really figure out. Cindy was on the phone with College Board trying to get an answer and was unsuccessful. So, but the SAT will still happen tomorrow. We'll have a modified schedule for the rest of our students. We'll reschedule the PSAT for our 10th and 11th graders sometime in the near future. We'll be sure to communicate out to parents via Parent Square when that's happening and let the students know too.
All the 12th graders take SAT?
Yes.
Who administers that? We do?
We have staff that do it, yeah. It's part of, I'm not sure exactly when it started, but College Board does a school day administration, so designates a specific day, typically in October, and often one in the spring as well, where high schools around the country, they during the school day administer SAT to the students. And while this round of SAT is still paper-based, in the spring, even the SAT is going to go to the new digital format. So they may want to rethink that. College Board is probably kicking themselves right now because there's lots of schools that are in the same boat as we are. We're hearing feedback from other like relatives of staff members who are having similar issues in their schools with College Board, the AP applications, and just being able to access what they need to access. So we'll get it figured out. So that's a big next step for us. And let's see, we just have a lot of events coming up in the near future with the high school. Looking forward to seeing our production of Romeo and Juliet, which begins next Thursday, is opening night. So that'll be fun, getting a chance to see that. I know the students have been working really, really hard on that show, and I'm excited to see how those performances come together. And then I'm really excited about the 25th of October. We're having our model Montessori nights, basically the high school version of open house. And so we'll have parents come and get a modified copy of their student's schedule. They'll go to classes, get a little mini lesson. They'll get to experience basically in a few hours a day in the life of a high school student. So they'll get to experience some classes. They'll get to do community circle and a lunch time. So it'll be neat, kind of maybe, reliving the high school glory days. But really it does give an opportunity for parents who maybe are not familiar with Montessori or who are just, interested to meet their kids' teachers and kind of see what their students experience on a day-to-day basis. So that's gonna be a lot of fun.
When is the date for that one?
It's the 25th, October 25th is a Wednesday. Yeah, aside from that, last girls volleyball games are this week. When I left the game earlier today, we were winning. I'm hoping that tonight was senior night for our 3 seniors that we have on the volleyball team. And then our last game is this Thursday. We've had a great season. We have won quite a few games. I don't know the exact total, 4 or 5 games. And the team has really come together. Yeah, it's been great.
Congratulations.
Thanks.
School tour is starting up on October 25th, which will be exciting. We already have, I didn't check today, but I think we had close to 30 people already signed up for the first one, so that's good. I am hoping that we will get a bunch of new families who will attend. We did have a the parent reading volunteer training a couple of weeks ago, and that was so well attended. We had a bunch of people, and I asked for a show of hands of who was new to the community, and it was a lot of new people. So, and a lot of our old reliables coming back too for a refresher. But yeah, really great to see the excitement and enthusiasm, and hoping, of course, to get as many new families on those tours as possible. They understand what it is that we are doing here. So that's tours. Fall Festival was wonderful. A huge shout out to PTO. I know Sarah will be talking about it soon. Looking forward to the colour run upcoming. Very happy to have progress monitoring round 1 under our belts, and looking at the data, we seem to have pulled up quite a bit between this time last year and now. So that's encouraging. Yeah, so things are going well. Teachers and TAs doing a great job, student services team and everyone. Yeah, all is well.
So that you say Q1 or like the first progress monitoring this year compared to first progress
Last
monitoring
year. Yeah.
Because
Is
that's
that
the first
something you
time we
can
would
share?
have that, right?
Exactly. Yeah, it's the
Yeah.
first year we're able to do that comparison.
Yeah, is that something you can share, like, if you've got?
Yeah, I
some
have a
number on it?
spreadsheet, certainly.
That's what we're working on tomorrow, like going, reviewing it, so we'll just send that out.
Yeah, I'll give it to Heather to pass on to you.
Awesome.
So that's kind of our operational. Do you all have any questions about what's going on?
I just had one question
Uh-huh.
because I know that you said something before about communication, but I didn't totally capture. You said something with it had to be rescheduled.
Yes.
What was the meeting about?
It was the task force group where we were gonna get together. I had put out a survey to parents, and 6 parents responded back that they would be willing to serve. And then I have staff as well, probably about the same amount of staff. And so that is where we're going to create, actually I want them to come up with, but in my mind, what I envision is we have parent trainings. So we have creation of that, and then also kind of a selling our school. This is who Innovation Montessori is, and this is what we're all about, and having a production by the end of the year that we can share with families and the community for that. So hopefully I'll get that within the next week or so rescheduled.
Any movement on the wordsmithing?
John had to cancel,
If
he
we
had
had
something
another
come
meeting,
up, so saw an
Okay.
email he sent out looking to,
There's gotta
the
be another regroup
contributors
on
to
that.
figure out in the next date,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So then I guess the next thing it leads us to is the amendments that I had put in the employee and then also the parent and student handbook. Instead of writing policies per se, just putting those blurbs in both of the handbooks. Around the parent, the big thing that changed is the field trip and how we let them know about the field trips, which, to be honest, we already do. You had to do the date, the time, the location. Those are things that we already tell. We just don't take kids, on our own, but it's now in the handbook. And that, that they would not be going to inappropriate places. So that's in there. And then also the legal name. That is the only two big changes in our parent and student handbook. And then under the employee, it added this section about the special magistrate and how they could go about filing for that, that they'll follow the internet safety policy and then on classroom instruction, and then they'll follow our restroom policy. So that's the only changes in both of those I highlighted in yellow for you all to review.
Yeah, because we previously reviewed them, but they were just all separate. So now you
Right.
went back through and consolidated so that the documents you loaded on board docs are just the revised version.
Yes, it's just
And I
they're highlighted
scanned and I saw
reverse.
those highlights
Yeah.
again. Okay.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
all had already approved those two manuals already. And so this is just the updated, amended to reflect the changes for that.
Okay, this we do have to vote on.
Yeah.
Any questions on that?
The special magistrate one and the employee handbook, I guess maybe I don't remember having that conversation if we did or not, but can you just brief me again what that means?
Sure. So if you remember either last meeting or the meeting before, we go through that, we have to sign off on the special magistrate that that will follow those as a board. But
Yeah.
this one pretty much just says
I just didn't remember one for the teachers.
Yeah, well, this is now they put this into place where if teachers went through all of the grievance policy and didn't like the way it was handled, they could reach out to the state and I guess ask for legal counsel that way, but they would have to try to resolve that at school first. I don't know, Kevin, if you want to add anything to that. It's really sounds like to me something that you would already obviously do, but I guess they put it into law for that.
I don't know much more about it.
Yeah.
It became effective just at the end of the summer. So.
Yeah.
And all of these changes are related to the adjustments in the rules and the House
Yes.
bills.
Mhm.
This is a response to that, to be
Right.
in alignment with that. It's
Right.
not really anything
Yes.
new that we're.
We talked about
Bless you.
about parents having that process to go through if they have this dispute with their child.
Yeah, it's
It's
in
just-
the parent handbook
That's-
now. It's under the, oh, no.
one For the,
It's separate from
Yeah.
the parental rights bill, special magistrate.
yeah,
This one is one that a teacher who feels like they've been asked to violate the law.
that's what I was saying, is the one within
Goes to
the
DOE.
parent teacher is about the parental rights and education.
Yes.
This is, okay.
Probably
They are
coming from the
separate.
same place politically, but
Yes,
it's
Yeah.
a different statute.
got it, okay.
Yeah.
Does this put any other special onus on us to, like, if somebody does go to the state and want a special magistrate, do we have to do anything?
Pay for it.
I'm
Yeah,
sure we have to
just
do legal,
pay
yeah.
legal fees to do that?
Yeah,
Would those exist today, like? I guess really once is there not a path for that today that? If there's a dispute?
I really think it comes back to if, I know that's not connected, but I think it is connected. It would be if we as a school ask a teacher to do something that goes against the parental
in.
right.
Yeah. Yes, okay.
things. Is what I'm reading, even though it's not saying that, I'm just gonna be blunt and
Got it.
say it, that I think it would be if we said, hey, we want you to go, we're telling you, we don't care what that says, you're gonna go against it.
Okay. So this is not just grievances? in
No.
general. Okay, these are things related to that,
Yeah.
okay.
Well, yes, no. It's
It's
not been said that
It's
correctly.
not written that way, but that's the
No.
interpretation.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Most other things can be resolved
yeah.
otherwise.
I think before this, yeah, I think before this, if the teacher is asked to do something illegal, he doesn't do it, and then the school would have taken adverse employment action,
Right.
not promoting them, firing them, something like that. They would have had recourse under just the general employment law.
Right.
This gives you a separate kind of shortcut to getting a lawyer appointed to sit and act as kind of a judge. And,
Got it.
you know, beyond that, you have to pay for it.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
I'm thankful for the Arnold Law Firm to give us these updates and summaries and reminders. Hey, here's something that you need to add to your handbook. Here's another thing that needs to go.
I
in.
know, and how much of it actually relates to education, but anyway, that's a
Mm.
topic for another meeting.
Yeah.
A long meeting.
Mm.
Okay.
Okay, who would like to motion?
Do we need to have two separate votes on these or do we approve which one?
I'll move to accept both handbooks as modified.
Have a motion to accept both handbooks as presented
With the new
Modified.
highlighted
with the new highlighted content.
Both employee and parent student.
So
Mhm.
And
Second content stuff.
stuff and some other things. The motion, the second. All in favor? Aye.
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 I
Okay, motion carries.
So I've already kind of talked to you all a little bit about the action plan and where we're at, but I had went to the high school and Lachey has done a phenomenal job of I had asked either to have students in person, I know it was last minute, or somehow to start getting our students involved in our board meetings besides just hearing me speak or sometimes our staff speaking. And so they did have an opportunity to put together a video for us, and it's a mixture of students talking about IMHS and then also some pictures of events of what's going on. So I'm going to try to share my screen here for you, for everyone to see. Can you all see that on your screen? Okay. So hopefully you can hear it.
All right, so Alex, Jeremiah.
Oh, sorry. So you can, I wonder if you can turn it on.
Marissa, did you hear that video playing?
no, I can't hear the volume on the video.
Oh, okay.
So when you share your screen, there should be a button to click to share your audio too.
Stop sharing.
All right, so I'm here with Khaled,
Jeremiah.
And Yasmin.
and what grades are you guys in?
I'm a junior.
I'm a senior.
I'm also a senior.
All right. So I have a couple questions for you guys. And my first question is, what is the importance of being a student-led school? In the student-led school, it really allows students to lead and get leadership opportunities, and students can really decide what and how the school is run.
Yeah, sort of what Khaled said. It's like a student-led school is sort of more about letting the students, have this opportunity to sort of let their creativity show. We are also to have, make decisions, especially for like committees. Like we can petition to have our own committees, and those teachers, enforce that, and they encourage us to go out there. So.
It helps create a better sense of community within all the students, being able to, like what they said, make more decisions in committees and all those type of things.
Okay, all right. So one more question, and it is, what has Montessori education taught you about yourself? It just taught me that I like a more chill school, and that because of the Montessori environment, just taught me how to prioritize assignments and how to get work done efficiently.
Okay. Yeah, I'd say a Montessori education taught me time management is a good thing to work on. Something that taught me about myself is that I really like a community-based environment. Like I love, being in a community, being able to help, making friends, stuff like that.
It has helped me to help work independently and to be a part of a community that I love and enjoy.
Great. All right. Thank you guys so much for your yes and yeah.
All right, so with me I have Georgia.
Anyways.
All right, so what grade are you guys in first?
Ninth.
And how long have you guys been with Innovation Montessori?
Since kindergarten. Same since kindergarten.
Cool. And did you guys know each other in kindergarten?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's when we became friends.
Yeah, we've known each other since we were 4.
Cool. That's crazy. All right, so I have a couple questions for you guys, and my first question is: compare your first day of kindergarten and your first day of high school.
So I remember whenever my first day of kindergarten, I came out my mom's car and I was bawling my eyes out because I didn't want to go to school. And I got in and I had a really fun day because I remember snack time. It was so much fun. My first day of high school, I was really nervous because my first day of high school, and I actually had a really fun day because I had some classes with my friends and it was a good experience.
Okay.
For me, I came out the car and surprisingly I wasn't crying, but I was really happy. And like my parents, like all the parents were taking pictures, like, and they had posters and stuff, like first day of kindergarten, and then my parents just dropped me off and I had a really fun day, and it was like a bunch of hands-on learning with building blocks, beads, and a bunch of things.
Okay, and how was it your high school year?
My high school year, the first day of high school, I was nervous, but I was kind of excited to start, like, obviously, like, not at, like, a new school, but, at the high school building. And I was just excited to obviously make new friends and classes and things because, like, the blocks were different for times and stuff, and it was just really fun.
All right. Second question, what is it hard? Was it hard to transition from middle school to high school?
Not really, because I knew a lot of people that are going to the high school, and it wasn't like that scary. Like I got used to it as I went on, and it wasn't really that much harder, but it was different because it was a new location. But it was pretty good. I liked it.
Okay.
For me, I think it was kind of different for me because it was good, but it was also kind of challenging in a way because obviously the teachers are different, the works are different, the kids are different. Being with all mixed different grades, 18, 17, 16, 15, 14-year-olds is like different, obviously in a different environment. But I think for the most part, it's really fun surrounding yourself with older people and mature people. So you can surround yourself in like that type of life before you obviously go to college and stuff.
All right, so I'm here with
Annie,
Oscar.
Jordan,
And what grades are you guys in?
11th.
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 Okay. So I'm going to ask you guys a couple questions. So my first question is, what do you think about your learning environment?
I really like all the classes. All the teachers are really understanding and nice. And I really like all the projects, like especially in Miss Krause's English. She offers a lot of creative and, personal projects that you can express your learning through. So, yeah.
I think it's very different from a regular high school where it's all very cut and dry. Over here, it's a little different. And I like how we're a bit more flexible and our projects are more, fun and it's more student oriented.
I would have to say the same as Annie, that our teachers and the overall vibe is very kind and sweet. And the assignments are fun and they're good. They're a good way to learn because they force the students to be creative and to fully get a grasp on the subject at hand.
Okay. So my next question is, what does it mean to be a student-led school?
I think that means for us that the teachers sort of give you the opportunity to find your own ways to express your, what you're learning and your own personal abilities. Like, for example, I know that a lot of the students were able to, including myself, to work on murals and, sort of lead that and start to decorate our schools and,
Okay. What are some examples of students leading? I think some examples of students leading are our community days. Like we, as students, plan that. We have, a sort of a small organization that plans that. We are able to be focused on that. For example, when we were cleaning up the school and when we did the garden or the chicken coops, that was all student led and it's pretty nice.
Right. And Jordan, describe IMO chess community. The IMO chess community is very tight knit, meaning that that every student knows every student. You could walk in and then suddenly there's a new face who already knows your name. You can get along right away, and everybody's just overall very sweet and very open.
All right, and that's all for our questions. Thank you so much for answering my questions. Thank you. All right, hey guys, Chris here. And quickly, I want to share with you guys some announcement we have coming up for the month of October. So firstly, I want to thank you guys for the pep rally. It was a success. We raised almost $400, so we thank you guys so much for your donations. Next, our Model Montessori night. Basically, parents come to take a walk in student shoes during our Model Montessori night. It's going to be hosted on October 25th. Lastly, our Spooky Night In, October 26th. IMHS will host a Spooky Night In. It's going to be from 7 p.m. to 12 midnight. So you don't want to miss that because it's going to be so much fun.
I 100% have to thank Lachey for getting that together with our students. So I'd like to do that more often, of getting our students either in or some videos to share of letting them talk about their school and what's going on.
There's our first video for the website.
Yeah. Perfect.
That just seeing that reminded me, this past week, I met with the Principals Advisory Council. So I have a group of 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th graders that I'll be meeting with hopefully at least once a month, if not more often. And one of the suggestions that they made was about Friday afternoons. So we have a community circle that meets Friday afternoons, kind of just to wrap up the week. And they had a suggestion for how we could modify or change how we're using that time. And so students presented it. I presented it to staff. Staff was like, yeah, we love this idea. And so last Friday was our kind of rollout of that new plan. So when we talk about being student led, that's a perfect example where the students kind of shared their idea on, you know, how we modify something that was a concern. And the feedback that I got from how the activity went last Friday was great. So just one more reminder of the great things our high school students are doing.
And also, did we hear a high schooler describe his high school as kind and sweet?
Yeah.
I think it's
Wow.
copies.
Yeah.
Yeah, figure that one off.
No, not at all.
Rough
That
shared.
is lovely. Well done, Michelle,
Set
students. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's kind of the operational side of things that's been happening. Do you all have any questions before Philip gets into our finances?
No.
We're leading you in with a rosy glow.
Yeah.
Right.
Very good. All right.
Right, with that.
Okay, finance update is on.
All right, so we'll do a. Well, actually, I spent time with Heather this afternoon talking, and I realized I didn't go back to my finance notes from our finance committee last month to jot down notes, but it all kind of rolls together. I'll start with the high level that I've rolled out, and then you guys can ask questions for Heather and I to go deeper on the details. As always, we try to find that right balance. You know, Heather and her team are all the way in the details of this bill needs paid then, and these dollars are in this account there. I don't usually go into those details. I like to hear where their headaches are, so I know where the challenges are, but I'm like, but that gets to be your headache, and good luck, you know, like keep me updated at how it progresses. So with that roll up in mind, this is where we're starting with, right? So overall residual payments, one of the things that's come in as a headache of this year is residual payments that slipped through the cracks during transitions at the end of last year have come in to add some of the cash flow headaches to Heather. These are things like some janitorial supplies, and there was pest control was emailing Dave's email address with the monthly bill, which is problematic. They probably should have paid attention to that, you know, no longer working there, automatic reply, but they weren't. They probably had an auto invoice going out. So we've got a couple of these that have come through and are on that list of things adding to that cash flow crunch. Another area that we've talked about now for, I think, more than a year is grant reimbursements. One of the things is Heather was giving me an update. OCPS is closing out ESSER 2, so they're prioritizing all ESSER 2 submissions, which means they're deprioritizing ESSER 3 temporarily. I'm like, really, I think a 90-day turnaround is what's realistic for these grant reimbursements, which means that, you know, we don't always prefer it to be faster, but that's really what we're looking at. And that doesn't mean we get to submit it and then just wait in the 90 days the money will magically show up. It means you got to like actively work it. And if you work it on top of it, then you'll get your money in 90 days. All these things are coming together for the conversation of redoing the 2023 budget. Heather gave us an update last month. That was on the list. She's working through it with Lily, as well as with some of the new resources she has through Building Hope. She's got in particular, one person that is a consultant who Building Hope uses. Person shared with her, normally she comes in for schools that are in financial distress when Building Hope sends in like a team from the investors to help them get their feet under her. It's not why she's here. I'm wanting to make sure I don't present this in a way that people go, oh my gosh, the school's out of money. That's not the story. It's a matter of those saying, hey, like we need to make sure we're on top of where these things are. What I liked with what Heather was sharing me is that I'm hearing that she's got the right resources lined up with people who have good insight, good experience, know how to dive into things that you don't have the person who says, oh, that's over here in this drawer, third folder back on this page. She's coming in where normally they have none of that, and they've got to figure out all those pieces. So she's giving Heather that guidance. With that is redoing that 2023 budget then. So that's this year's budget. Particular things that stand out as the biggest things that we know are outliers. One is the 45 days cash on hand at end of year. That wasn't budgeted in. And then there was also some positions that we had marked as covered by grant dollars, but as Heather's gotten into details, has found that they're not covered. And I keep saying Heather, but I know you're might actually be someone else, right? She's got partners she's working with who are finding these. So as we all know from the times we've been closer to the budget, needing 15,000, needing $40,000 isn't as simple as just saying, oh, I'll just take it. You're like, wait, no, that might be 5,000 here and 8,000 there. And how do you want to tweak this? And how do you want to tweak that? And did you want to adjust where this is? And some of those things where you'd really like to not do, oh, let's just take out elevator repairs. You're like, oh, wait, that's not one that's an option. That one has to stay. So that is the big one that Heather and team are working on with the plans to present to us in November, what that new budget for 2023 will look like. That will mean that Heather and her principals, as well as probably their staff, will be getting into those hard details to make those decisions of what are these actual changes that this means for this year. All of this comes together. One of the parts that I really wanted to close is Heather and I were talking. I was like, all right, so what are you feeling, right? Are you like, oh my gosh, what did I get myself into? Or is it like, no, there's a path, and there is a path through all of this. There's a path that'll make it all work. There's a handful of hard decisions that have to be made, and that's really going to come out in that budget redo. What are some of these tweaks? And it's where does, those are that's the same, it's the hard decisions that always come in budget, right? Where do you cut and what do you keep, right? What are those adjustments? The two other questions that I really made sure to dive into with Heather is the long-term viability of the school and cash flow concerns in the short term, right? Long-term viability, really no concerns there. Our models work overall, right? Sometimes it might mean a little less we always want more. It's always nice to have more people on staff, more people around to help do more things. But hey, this is where the dollars aren't there, the grant money's not there. The funding stayed pretty much consistent, sort of. They shifted dollars to grant money, and as dollars shift out, you have to adjust what that is. Cash flow concerns, not concerned from an aspect of like not able to meet the critical core bills, concerned from an aspect of it gives headaches and preferably high blood pressure. But so those are the challenges of monitoring where those dollars are going and how it is. I liked the details Heather was able to give me of where her and the team have gotten into, awareness of what they have, the specifics of what they're in on, and the approaches that they're taking to make sure they're monitoring it and staying on top of it all. So yeah, that's kind of that's the overall. That's what I summarized as like much more detailed conversation that I had with her. So I'll open the floor to you guys to. Well, Heather, if you wanted to add anything as well as.
So it's more short-term cash flow is more of the concern area, not longer term.
There's some changes to the budget,
contrasting those two, right?
Yeah. So short-term cash flow is the immediate headache, right? Like that's always for any smaller business. If your cash flow runs out, you can have a viable business that just implodes on itself. And that's one of my top concerns that I've made sure to keep in conversation with Dave ending out last year, as well as with Heather. She's getting settled in. That's not a new one. This is even as far back as January of last year. So as you guys look like grant reimbursement is adding very much. It complicates what the business is. Our business model, if you go back pre-COVID, was really easily straightforward. We got not always like straightforward as we kept growing. So there was, I want to downplay what it was, but we got money every month, twice a month, same amounts. Grumbled about they didn't quite have our student counts right, but then they would catch us up and we'd get more money towards the end of the year. Then the grants came in and shifted that up a whole bunch. You've got $900,000 available to you, but you have to spend it first. And after you spend it, then you can get reimbursed. And if you don't spend it, then you can't get reimbursed. But we want you to add this program because your students are behind. And we knew our students were behind because we were feeling it in the classrooms. And so we wanted to add those tutors for that. But you have to spend it before you can get reimbursed. And so it complicates all of that, right? So that hasn't been a new issue, but it also, just because it's not new doesn't mean it's not a challenge. And so that is the headache that Patrice and Dave were dealing with last year. I think Kathy and Jared have had more appreciation of it as we've gotten into this year. They've gotten to be more in the trenches of feeling that pain of what's this look like. So it's created strain on, no, I don't really want you to buy supplies right now because we're making sure we need all of this on. Our grant reimbursement's not coming back in, but I wanted to spend this because I've got the grant dollars, well, sort of, but I don't have the cash for you to spend so you can get reimbursed because I have to, it's going to take us 90 days to get that dollars back in the door. So those are the that's the dynamic that's going on right now. Like I said, I really liked the conversation I had with Heather. She was able to give me a lot of the details, the business, the partnership she has with Building Hope and the resources available to her through there. Give me some more confidence that we're lining up. I reiterated to her that I'm inclined towards, based on my experience, knowing things overall, that we really lean into hit Building Hope for all the things that they say they offer, and let's see. My intuition says they probably may be more beneficial for us than having an on-campus business director / accountant, because as we've gotten more complicated with multiple campuses, multiple structures, a bond outstanding, all of these other pieces, there's a lot more technical stuff that comes in, and an organization like Building Hope is going to have an expert in this area and an expert in that area, and they're dealing with 5 schools that have that and 10 schools that have this, and so they're more likely to have that person that they go to. I'll admit I'm a shared services junkie because I've worked in that in a large corporate world. So I'm a little bit, spreading the shared services philosophy, but that is an aspect of where it likely would work for us. So I'm like, let's lean into them, really challenge them to deliver for us. One of the things that Heather said is they are willing for their accountant to attend board meetings, join us in finance committee meetings, right? They'll be the accountant who's around. We've added a second meeting more for Heather and I, and she might add a handful of staff, but intent is to keep it smaller than the finance committee. So it's really more of a touch point. This is something I used to do with Dave somewhat unofficially, but it was how I had my finance updates for you guys in the board meeting, was I'd always chat with him for 15 to 45 minutes on the day or 2 days, like really the day after the day before the board meeting. So I've added that in with Heather, so she'll be able to update me on where that is. And I think you pulled in the Building Hope accountant with that as well. So, yeah.
So we started using Building Hope in September. And so what is the package of services that they are providing for us then exactly?
So twofold. I'll give you just the regular side. So after numerous phone calls with QuickBooks, trying to gain access, on hold at 4 hours at a time kind of thing, finally was able to get QuickBooks last week for the first time, because nobody knew who the exact account holder was, the name, those kind of things. So they have rolled everything over. Lily has already went in and started in. They have what they call Charters Ace that reads into QuickBooks Desktop. And so she's already put through a lot of our vendors, working through that process. And Trisha is her name with Building Hope. She's kind of the lead. Is going to meet with Lily and I next Tuesday morning to kind of keep going over the system, and we have to develop some in-house processes of right now. The only people that can approve purchases are going to be the 2 principals and myself, and what does that process look like? Who orders? I want to set up. I realize we don't have, say, for example, Amazon. We don't have a business Amazon account. We just have a regular one. So switching some of those things over. So we're going to meet with her next Tuesday. She's coming in person. So we'll have that side set up. Then on the other side, I met with 2 weeks ago the consultant for about 4 hours. We went through every GL code, what we wanted. We created a spreadsheet. And so Lily and I have been working, pulling out exact costs of what we're actually paying and not, what we projected to pay by code. And so, for example, classroom teachers have a certain code. So what is that? And then breaking apart through ADP, all of the extra incomes, or, whether that's insurance, whatever. Then today, her and I worked on, like how much are we spending on operations and actually getting a true number. So by the end of this month, I'm hoping that we have a true budget of where we're at. So the process would be, once we get all the numbers in and have a way to streamline that, so it's not taking us forever to pull it each year, then I'm going to sit down with the 2 principals and we're going to play where do we
But I
fit?
think Kristen, maybe where you were asking, like, I remember we talked about this last month, were you at last month's meeting? Like we were looking to use Building Hope's kind of back office, finance and accounting service. We load information, we load our QuickBooks data to them. They help run our numbers every month and put together all of the documents that we need to submit to the county, all the documents we need to send to the bondholders. Richard is like we'll put an extra set of eyes on reviewing our numbers every month and make sure that if there's any abnormalities that they see, that they can work with us to make sure that we're not doing things that are gonna get us in trouble. And but they basically take care of handling all the bookkeeping
The accounting.
functions
Yeah.
that, you know, a business manager would, so.
Yeah.
And they would handle all the disbursement of
Fine
those
stuff.
documents to the right stakeholders that need them on a regular basis, so.
He's currently working with our auditor. There's some documents that, I sent you all the final audited reports, and I actually, they sent us some fancy ones if you want that, the paper copies, but, he needed some information from them, and so I just put them on an email together, so they're going back and forth with that. But yeah, I think, another thing that I've learned through this whole process is, next week is the charter conference that the three of us are going to go to, and the consultant's going to meet with me there and introduce me to some vendors, just to start price comparing what we're paying for some of our services outside. So whether that's insurance, whether that's payroll, all of these other things, just start seeing if we can save some money in that direction as well.
Is that the Florida conference?
Yes, the charter conference.
Where is that?
It's here in Orlando.
Royal Carib.
What is it?
Royal Carib.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, so I'm hoping that we'll be able to look at maybe some cost savings, because the lady that I met with, was extremely knowledgeable and, has worked with multiple charter schools, and her ultimate is she comes in a lot of times when the investors say, hey, and it's a team of 5, so they look at everything, but she's been very, hey, I'm not coming to change your all's anything. I'm just going to present numbers to you and ways to create systems. And that way that if you leave, or, if somebody in the organization leaves, it's not this big turnaround thing again.
And that was a consultant they offered to us. That's
Yes.
just an extra service,
Yeah.
knowing we need some help sorting out our books right now.
So that's kind of where we're at. So by the next meeting, I will have a new 23-24 budget for approval.
So sorry.
No, sorry, I just want to, first off, thank you for quite the workload getting started, but just to understand, obviously, the big issue is the grant piece, right? So how much of that this year is still gonna be in the budget? Like, how much are we still gonna have to deal with that in this school year?
Yeah, so I've actually calculated that today. We have $800,000 left to spend. It runs out of September of 24. And as Philip said, one of the things I noted when I really dove into the grant is there was some positions that were only written for 22-23, but that was not noted when we finalized the budget. And so those are things we're going to have to see. I'm going to reach out to OCPS and say, okay, can I redo the grant and say, okay, well, we don't want this anymore. We want the position to be reimbursed for.
I guess, yeah, so I guess I'm thinking or curious to, strip away the grant funds that haven't been spent, for this school year from a cash flow standpoint. Like, where do we, I just want to understand, A, how much is it affecting it, and B, what could we just, we have these funds, so do we have to spend them at this point? Is that correct?
We don't, well, so here's where we're at. We're spending them through personnel. That we have to at least try to get reimbursement for. Because right now we kept personnel under the grant, but so it's coming out of our payroll already.
But there's a cash flow issue to this meeting. We have to be able to pay for them before we
Upfront.
get the funds to
Reimburse.
reimburse, so
Yes.
we've gotta be able to
So
flip the
like
bill
a
to.
cash flow issue and also
Yeah.
a possibility we don't get reimbursed.
Yeah.
And to me, I mean, if ESSER was going on forever, this seems like it's always behind, so. I mean, we can't just say it's behind this time,
Yeah.
it's been months, maybe years. So it's a permanent situation, and it seems like we need a operating reserve policy that we get to pretty quick to accommodate this situation and also the cash on hand requirement that is coming soon, coming fast. I think we probably have a disclosure associated with that now that the audit's been issued. But ESSER is going away. This is it, right? So
Yeah, 2024.
so
we
this
have
good problem
$800,000.
that of free money that we just get late is gonna turn into no money.
And we have to make reductions to accommodate that, right?
Yeah.
So can you level set like some facts for us, like where you, I know you sent out, this is August balance sheet, like. Can you
August
just-
and September, you should have, or you should have July and August.
Right,
And Kevin did not, he said he could not get it ready today because we got QuickBooks so late.
Yeah,
So, but he'll have September's probably.
where do
within a
we
week.
stand if I'm looking at the balance sheet here, if you can just kind of summarize
Mhm.
that, Philip, like, what's the balance sheet say we're at? Current budget, and then like, where are we at with cash on hand and, you know, where, I guess, maybe to Kevin, you're saying like, how does that position us against what we're required to have for the covenants on the bond? Are we compliant with that or not?
We're not. Now, the bond would do snapshots end of June. We'll speak of on this, we should post at 45 days all the time, but that would be, we're not in compliance. Now, we're going from 30 days this last year's where we were supposed to be in June to 45 days in June of next year. So that is.
Where are
one-
we now? Do we have a number?
I don't have a number like right now. But that's something that would be good to have Kevin
0
calculate and
days,
include it.
5 days, 10 days?
Did we ever get
2 hours.
We're
Facts, like, where are we at? Like,
You know, I don't, we,
I'll be honest, it's.
Well, it's gonna change every day, right?
Yeah,
It's gonna,
At the end of August, we
And I
should
think
know on a monthly basis how. where
I think if we
stand.
weren't in a moment of transition and had been planning for it, we would have, I mean, it's a 1 day testing day, so there's things you can do to.
I would, if there's a little, to answer the question of like, how did we?
I'm just trying to
end
understand
up
how
here,
far
right?
off are we from where. do
It
we
gets
need to
there
get to?
from we have to spend the money to get the money, so then it just keeps spending, and as soon as dollars come in, more gets spent. And that's I think the first round is to be able to say, look, we might not get all 800,000 of it, but that's okay, because I'm gonna make sure I've got this $150,000 buffer that sits there. And so even when it's like, oh, I've got this grant money, yeah, but like we've been running about 300,000. Every time I talk to you, it seems to still be about 300,000 that we're waiting on grant dollars to come back in. And that's actually been a consistent dollar amount now for running about 9 months.
Yeah.
Now, it's not that it's been the same 300,000, but it's that when dollars come in, they go right back out.
Because it's a rolling number, it's no longer an explanation.
Right. So part of that is to say, I think we should take that number down closer to $200,000. Because we would then have gotten dollars that we then don't go back out and spend. So that cash would stay in our like on our balance sheet, because we've reduced the amount we're waiting on. It could mean that we aren't able to get through the whole $800,000. Now, post CPS, if we see that number come down and it gets closer to 60 days, well, we would still keep it at $200,000, but it's going to turn faster, right? And I don't think that was an approach that had been taken before. It was like, no, we need to get all of it sooner, which isn't totally out there. The other one, as far as like just a balance sheet to budget, is a challenge. Like the finances that Building Hope did provide probably meet bare minimum requirements. They certainly will want better information. And that'll be something we'll have in a conversation, maybe even later this month. You and I can meet with him as well to say, okay, help me see more. Now there's a bit as well towards the budget questions I did ask Heather today was specifically looking at our revenue side of things. Where are we coming in revenue wise on that? And the numbers that we're getting now, the numbers you shared with me now more aligned with the revenue that I would expect for FEFP. So that puts our revenue stream in line with where we were budgeted for. We might need to lighten our spend. We do need to lighten our spend some. So some areas need to be cut, and that's for Heather and the principal staff. These conversations about where are we cutting if our revenue is coming in.
we are, So it's 261,000 is what we're waiting on as far as reimbursement. And I was able to reimburse up to, everything has been reimbursed except for salaries starting on 9/15. And that's when I realized, oh no, like they weren't in the budget in the grant. So,
Where would I see that on this balance sheet?
what the ESSER?
Yeah, what we have out.
I don't think you will.
We're gonna stand out. It's gonna be in the receivable from.
And while he's trying to find that, I will say Kevin, who helped even get September, said, I'm gonna have to go back to July and redo everything. Because not everything was entered correctly into QuickBooks. I don't want to say that was incorrect, but just the system was different that was used previously. So making sure that it's streamlined. And so he said, I'm going to get you to get compliant with OCPS in the state as far as last month's, but he's working on a true, like, here's where we're at. What he's trying to get from our auditor is a trial balance sheet for June 30th. And I think for some reason he wanted to see the audit from June 30th and then all of the things to kind of see where we ended to start July.
So this balance sheet you shared here from August,
That's the one.
These are gonna need to be redone?
Yes, he's gonna redo July and August.
But if I'm reading this shows an unfavorable balance of 83,000, is that to budget for the year, or is that? How am I reading?
I know the one, see, I'm looking at this one's July.
Say that again?
I don't think that's gonna tell you much about cash flow. That's just a negative net position.
Well, yeah, I mean, there's the cash flow.
Now there is what you will see on
balance sheet are probably two different things, but
it was hard to compare the budget.
Current actuals to budget show we'd be 83 unfavorable.
But that's including long-term debt and the value of the building and things like that that aren't reflected on cash flow.
Are you at the bottom numbers?
Well, and didn't the auditor
He's
also
looking at
say
the
too, our depreciation calculations?
You
were
shared
off
this
too?
balance sheet with me. Tell me what it means.
Which one? Do you have the date of which one?
I mean, this is what was attached in the.
It's the August,
Go to
it's
the
the
board
fund
to vote
balance.
on.
where it was
So
on
it's Innovation Montessori, August 23.
You have that.
Sorry, I'm just.
Look, these are
We
all,
shared it, like,
the
yeah.
three schools are consolidated.
I was gonna say, this is now a consolidated one. We don't do three separate, am I right?
Well, that is something we are gonna have to do. So going through this whole process, CASA has their own, they should be separate from us. They have their own checking, their own number. And so that is something that we're working through I think the best way we've talked about doing it is CASA will run everything and then we bill CASA for our expenses. In the past, we would just kind of tot that money back and forth. But since they're their own separate entity, we are, that we're gonna bill them. So for their payroll, their building use, those kind of things, and then put it over. But in the past, I think that money just kind of went back and forth. So we are fixing that.
Okay.
It was limited on how much back and forth it did. Usually when CASA paid, there would be like like they paid us rent every month.
Right.
And then usually there was an end of year reimbursement.
Meant for it. Yeah.
But this balance sheet is then what we submitted to the county. That shows
Yes.
fund balance for the year.
Yeah, and
Do you
this
have
goes
anything
with
that
side of
you're-
where it's stuff. When I looked at that, I was like, I think that he's missing. Like, I was glad to hear that he's like, okay, I need to review, but I know he didn't have the full details of what had been in QuickBooks. So I think it's missing pieces, or perhaps categorization is probably a more accurate one as far as like what it's missing on there. Our balance sheet is always hard to go from where it is because it's got just a couple of really large dollars. And they're like, okay, well, what does this actually mean? You're like, well, that's not like even the cash and cash equivalents.
What
is
numbers
lumping
should we
in.
do?
on the balance sheet, honestly.
Just if it's not even on this balance sheet,
You would look at
somewhere
the,
else.
I think the other one, statement of revenue, expenses and fund balances, which is more of your operating income statement. And that one will have, you can see like on, up in like the expenditures section, right? So it's showing you what your monthly spend is, what your year-to-date spend is. I'm hoping he has some other formats for us, because this aspect of year-to-date spend toward your annual budget is somewhat helpful, but my year-to-date spend, I'd like to know where I am towards my time in the year, right? So I've spent, I think it's got 14% of my total budget for my instruction, but is that really where I should be at this point in the year?
Yeah, this form that I've shared with you all is the state mandated report form is what we have to share.
Other ones, the big ones that I look at, like, so this is bare minimum, so I'm expecting he'll be able to give us better reports as he gets more stabilized. The numbers that I looked at, the revenue section, so you can see our revenue was, let me see, what do I have here? FEFP 1 million, so 475,000 came in August. That's $1,096,000 for the year on a budget of 10.3 million. I wasn't too pleased about that 475,000 because that's substantially below what we would need to get to having $10.4 million for the year. Now, that was one of the questions asked Heather. She's like, no, that number's come up. It's closer to where we budgeted. I think it actually might put us on track to get over where we budgeted. So that's
Meaning they're gonna fix that.
It's the same story every year, right? We increased our student count. They reimburse us on last year's student count for first few months. And then they catch us up. Some years they would give us a lump sum that caught us up immediately. Other years they stretched it out and had a delay. Another one is the capital outlay in here. We've got 140,000 a month that's come in on a budget of 9 million for the year. So that sounds like we're on track to get, sorry, not 9 million, 900,000 for the year.
I was gonna say, where did
You're
you
like,
get-
wait, 9 million, all my problems are solved.
Yeah, like that's all I need.
900,000 for the year. So those are the ones that I look at. The income statement is what really tells you the details. You can see is our revenue on track for where it should be, and then where's our expenses coming in. And you can see from looking at this that all of our expenses it's so heavily in staffing. Whether it's administration staffing, whether it's classroom staffing, whether it's special staffing, that's the majority of where our dollars go out the door for. And so we'll get one that's a little bit easier to read, but the income statement is where you would look to understand how we're doing for the year.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's what we had on a regular basis.
Yeah.
Going in the past, so
Yeah.
I'm just looking to tie back to.
Yeah, so Dave would send
Give me some-
both.
give me
right?
some facts
The
to-
balance
numbers
sheet
to
was
operate
like one
from.
page that
Yeah.
had like 10 numbers on it.
Yeah.
You're like, oh, we have $28 million. You're like, no, we owe that. Oh, dang it. Wait, are we gonna go broke? You're like, no, we got 30 years paid back. Oh, okay. So, and
But I
it's
guess
hard to take
mostly
that.
just like where do we stand from a liquidity perspective, do we have issues with cash on hand to make payroll and pay bills, like?
We
those are
will
the
make
things we
payroll.
need to-
So I don't want that, I don't want anybody to panic about making payroll. Just kind of a few numbers that I can share that I've done on my own. It's not an accountant, so I want to just preface that. Through OCPS, our FEFP is right around a month is around almost 661,000. We're a little shy of that. Payroll, just say for this time that we just did payroll, was getting ready to come out is 306,000. That does include, we pay ADP, the service fee, and then that also includes, we do stipends, the quarterly stipends. Teacher lead money went out this time. That was $17,000. That's the $300 upfront. And of course, the bond is getting ready to come out at 127,000. We do solar, which is 1652 a month. As Philip noted, excuse me, the SRO. I think what I found is that the last quarter wasn't paid. And so I just submitted that check. That's 39,000. So we do have another SRO payment that's going to be due at the end of this month.
Pay that quarterly.
Yes. And that's for 2. So,
Okay.
and then, if you just estimate electric's around 11,000, water and sewer is 1,200. I will tell you, water and sewer, one of the things, as Lily and I were going through all the bills, I panicked a little bit. I was like, wait a minute, the high school bill came out at $3,300 and IMO was 700. I'm like, something's not right. It is the irrigation came in that it was $2,300 for irrigation. So Tito came over today with Jared and walked the ground to see if we had a leak. He could not find a leak. He did see the box was offset. So he had mentioned Jared was going to call the city and see if maybe there was a mistake on their end, but I don't think that we need to pay that much money extra. So that was a red flag today. So, if you add all of those up, those are just the bills that we have to pay. Like those are our operating, I don't have garbage on there, but
those are kind of the non-negotiables.
yes. And so that's how we're building our budget. So we're going to say, here are all the things that we can't play with, that those have to be paid. Some of the things that are surprises to us is like janitorial, that hadn't, there was a mix up on, who they're sending it to, those kind of things. So it's things like that we do have to kind of move money around. So for example, like we owe $15,000 for IMO and janitor supplies. Same thing with pest control, like they sent bills that somehow were from February, March. I don't know, but going through those. So it is, it is about what do we have to have and what can we pay, but we will always make payroll until we can get this settled. So I don't ever want that to be, oh, that's not going to happen. We will be able to do that. But it is all of these extra things and putting what do we have to operate to ensure our students have exactly what they need. So we are playing a puzzle game right now. It is, as Philip called it, Tetris. What do I pay first? What do I pay second? And so that's why we do have to get this budget rebuilt, and I'm working as fast as I can with Lily. I think she's just going to move into my office. But to try to get this rebuilt so we can make some decisions on how do we ensure that we are not living paycheck to paycheck, but then also we have the covenant of 45 days.
From where, correct me if I'm wrong, from where I see it though, like you're having to, obviously, if the data going in is inaccurate, we have no idea, like, who knows if what we're looking at is accurate, right? So, thank God you're doing that, and shouldn't say it that way, but like in November, I would expect that I'm assuming that the budget then is going to be clear that month to month we can look at the actual versus the variance, right? To understand, because I just can't get over this, the grant thing. I think we need to be able to know, I've said this before, what the business needs to operate, without the extra stuff this year. Strip it down and look at that, and then see what we either add back in or take out, because until, I can't even, I don't know that. So I understand what I'm saying is I understand the work you're putting in, because you need a clear, you need to understand the data needs to be accurate for us to have a true conversation.
Well, I remember you saying you were looking for 2 versions of a budget, right? Where,
yeah, like
with grants and without grants, right?
That's what this is going to look like. We're going to take,
that's your point, Kevin. I think like the grants go away after this year.
Yeah, we have to start thinking in the non-grant.
What's the base operating budget
way of things?
Not that you can see this, but this is kind of what we're doing. Like, so our revenue part, okay, yeah, we have this much in grants, but then we are breaking it apart. I know you can't see that by code to say, okay, take the grant out. This is how much we're spending right now on classroom teachers, which is one code. But then we have support certified teachers. How much are we spending on it? How much are we spending on admin? How much are we, and then much are the non-negotiable? So I cannot change the electric bill. So what is, that has to stay and that's locked. And then as admin, we're gonna have to sit down and say, what can we touch? And what are we gonna have to change and pull out? And take the grant completely out of it and then put it in. So my goal would be to have a year budget for the whole operating, but then to give administrators monthly budget to say how much you have each month on supplies. Did we hit it? You know what I mean? And then so it's going to be twofold, but we have to get a clear picture of what we're actually spending, because what I'm finding is we have bills out there that are old bills that's putting us farther behind.
Sure. And my thought right off the bat is that if the grants are going to cause this much stress where we can't run the operation, I mean, it's not worth whatever, maybe I'm wrong in that, but I don't see the enhancement that it's getting for us to not be able to, but again, the data is not accurate coming in. How do we? So,
Right.
Well, if we submitted a balance sheet here to the county and the data is not accurate, like what is that? Do we have to come back?
I don't want to say the data is
like,
not accurate. It's until he says he can dive into it and actually see what, if everything's coded right. And so that's what he's saying. I put together as much as I can with what I have right now in QuickBooks. But now that we've transferred everything over, and then, like I said, Lily has went through and set up vendors and coded them. And so I think once we can tie those back together, that it will be.
Okay.
And it may even be this month, but it will be back on track to say this is exactly what's going on. So
Cool.
Lily and I are doing behind the scenes to say, okay, but we know for a fact this is what we're spending. Whether QuickBooks says that or not, here's the bills, here's what it is, this is what it looks like.
Yeah.
And so what we are doing is taking that. So the trash bill is this amount. Okay, we times that by 12. We know for a fact that's what it is. I don't care what QuickBooks says. This is what is coming in. And that's how we're going to build our budget, is that way. And then we have to put some in reserve for rainy day expenses, such as if our irrigation is broken, we have to have the $2,000 to fix it versus, and I'm not saying it is, but if that happens, we don't have that.
I mean,
right?
we have a requirement by the state to carry a certain amount of fund balance, right? Like,
5% fund, or sorry,
And we-
3% fund balance. Now
we had always historically kind of exceeded that by a
We ran
significant
11
amount, but have
we
we?
had, that's the number
Have
that he
we
had in
negated
here.
that at this point? Like,
The number he had in here, I think, is missing I actually think is missing our retained earnings that roll over from year over year. Which if he didn't have access to our QuickBooks, he's not gonna have our retained earnings.
Yeah, if you look
So,
at it, the fund balance year to date is the same as the fund balance that's theoretically from the inception of the school.
right,
And that can't be right.
yeah,
But I just want to note, I don't want anybody listening to this to think that we don't have fairly good data, because the very next thing in our agenda is the outside auditors report saying that our statement as of June 30th,
Yeah.
2 weeks ago,
we're good.
fairly present all material respects, the financial condition and the ability to pay our bills. So these are making sure the trash bill is properly put in there,
Right.
and making sure that our balance sheet doesn't
Yeah,
look worse than it actually is. Right?
I don't want to insinuate that either.
Yeah.
Oh, no, I think it's just a different
I don't mean to
system.
put you guys on the
There's
spot,
a-
but because I frankly think you're doing a fantastic job of, coming in, inheriting some challenges and addressing them head on. I think with a very intelligent plan and approach to doing that. So very thankful that you are doing that. To me, I just want to be helps me to operate from some facts and some numbers, not, we talk about some things in generalities. It's hard for me to get my head around, okay, like what specifically are we talking from? And I think if we have a revised budget or an updated set of numbers, and we can look at those on a monthly basis with actuals to, plan variance. And if you're doing that with your leaders running their lines of business, then I think, that should be something that can roll back up to us to be able
Absolutely.
to, make sure we got the big picture and understand, do we, for the year, how are we trending and how are we trending month over month? Like, that's what I'm looking to see.
Right.
And the sooner we have that, then the better. It just kind of,
Right.
even if we've got issues, it at least allows us to operate from a set of facts to go, okay, well, where are the issues and what are we doing to address those, so.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I think, again, I don't want it to sound like, oh, to the community, oh my goodness, and how it was done before that it was wrong. It's just hard to transfer over. So my goal would be to have it so streamlined that no matter who is in whatever seat can come in and the place would still operate. So that's my end goal.
But I think that's the benefit we get from using a service like Building
Mhm.
Hope is, they've got a team of people running this ongoing. If they have people in and out, it doesn't disrupt their
Very
operation.
much.
We have hire a new business manager and they leave and then another person leaves, like it's a huge deal for us.
Because
to
you have that one person,
that.
you really need to rely heavily on them. The challenge with these numbers right now, I see them as we're going through a system change.
Yeah.
While also going
Get
through a
it.
staffing change. They make sense to put them hand in hand, but it's not really what you'd want to do. You'd prefer to have the person who has the expertise and experience and the knowledge to still be there to walk you through the system change. And so that's, it's like, well, the numbers don't take them completely at face value, but they're not wrong. They would just wish they were more right. So yeah, there's those, that's what I like about Building Hope is too, so that if someone left on their side, they have a team of people who are doing basically identical things for other organizations, following the same coding structures, the same patterns, the same rhythms. So they would then be able to roll someone in, and the person who's the next cube over or readily available on Teams is doing the same thing for a different school. So what do you do on this? What do you do on that? And
Yeah, we just really have to make sure Lily stays in place for right
We
now.
still have a reliance on a human.
Absolutely, you
Yeah.
do. Because Building Hope has been great, and I don't want to knock that at all, but all of the behind the scenes to get this ready has been on her.
Yeah.
So, and Stephen has jumped in to help, and Alicia, but like countless hours of inputting, because all of this doesn't just miraculously appear in Charter Ace or QuickBooks. Like she's still uploading all the invoices and still helping all of that side of it. So, I want to get it to where even in her position that there's cross training, that people would know, if something, that we would know, we wouldn't be all looking at each other like, what do we do if something, if she became sick or something, that we could run that.
So we're gonna have to budget labor for that cost ongoing forever.
Yeah, there's no way.
Plus the labor, the cost for Building Hope, which would be
Which we
mostly
already
offset
had,
by a payroll reduction from that headcount we had, but there's still a net increase, I think. Last time you and I talked about it, that we'd have to make sure
we already had
that.
some labor, right? Like, our business director wasn't the only person who was doing this stuff. He had people who were also doing payroll stuff, right? It was Lily.
Yeah, it was Lily before, right?
So that part would be like, you move the one role out to the others, but the other roles really, the changes, I'm sure what they look like a bit, but there's still.
But the headcount reduction for the business manager and the increase of the Building Hope
They're a
costs,
little bit more expensive.
there's a net increase
Yeah.
in cost to
Mhm.
run this, but.
Yeah. And what I'm hoping though is I can learn some things next week that would help offset some of the other costs. So like I said, for example, meeting with her, she had some suggestions for payroll company that sounds like, and I haven't met with them, that it's a lot cheaper and that it ties in beautifully with what we need. And so all of that system can run together. So I'm going to research that next week and just see. So we may be able to make up some of that cost savings over time. If, once our contracts run out with certain things. So I'm hoping next week to have some connections that way.
So if you guys get updated financial
Absolutely.
statements, in the next, as soon as you get them, if you could share
We will.
those.
They'll be
I'd
due by the
appreciate that.
20th, so she'll have them within by
Yeah.
the end of next week.
And I think too, I think it'll help, like Philip said, I just invited Kevin to our finance meetings as well. So then he can kind of start to get a feel for what we want and what we need, because they did say they would craft that however we want to present that.
Okay.
And that they would be willing to come to our board meetings or be on Zoom for our board meetings.
Every
So
month.
Kevin, do you have his last name?
That's part of our
Lugar,
fee.
Lugar, yeah.
He's our guy from Building Hope.
Yes. There's one more, but I haven't met him and I can't even remember his name, but yeah. There's a team of 4 of them, and like one guy checks another guy and they that kind of thing, but
Anything else on finance? 8:39. Coming closer to the end. I know Sarah's still online. Sarah, do you want to do your PTO update?
Hey, yeah, I'll do a quick one. I bet you guys want to head out, but the color run is 11 days away, so it's our inaugural event. We're very excited for it. You can still register. Lots of questions about that. We're going to take registrations up to the 18th. You can feel free to share your fundraising link online with everybody. So far, we've raised $2,700 for athletics, so not a bad start. But we still need a big push. So we're looking to maybe come up with some creative incentives or just maybe just blast it out a little bit more. So be prepared for a lot of posts for me on Parent Square for the next 11 days. Get excited. We're also going to have our clothing drive as well. So they're going to pull up a truck on campus on Friday. And then everyone can just donate their old clothes, blankets, shoes, even some like of the textile children's toys they'll accept. And then we'll do that. Show Choir is going to be hosting a bake sale at the fundraise at the color run. So you can get some baked goods. And then the robotics club is going to be selling coffee to help get their club off the ground. We have a lot of wonderful items for raffle. Thank you, Kristen, for those wonderful Universal tickets. Woo! And we've got some other really wonderful things. We've got a whole foot-long party sub from Subway that you can get, a bunch of fun items. So check out our online raffle, and then you can still get your raffle items in person as well. Also in the raffle, there is a special item that was made by our wonderful band teacher, Michelle. So you can get custom lamps that they made, and 100% of that proceeds from that one item will go for IMO band support. So that's like all things color run, really exciting. We're still doing our electronics recycling drive for the robotics club. Those bins are in front of all 3 campuses. We're going to run that for another week up until the color run. And then we are also having an Instagram contest. So follow us at PTO Owls _IMO. If you enter that, you could be in the win to have a PTO prize pack. So maybe some spirit merch could come your way if you follow our Instagram. And that's it. Just some fun updates from us and more to come.
Thank you. Hey, Sarah, with the color run, I just wanted to clarify, people they can come to the color run, but they don't have to be present to participate in the raffle, correct? You can do the raffle. But
that is correct. And then also, if you can't come to the color run, feel free to, you can even make a campaign. So say you're going to the play, lots of people are doing that, and you can't go, but you still want to participate in the fundraising effort. You can still make a little fundraising link and you don't have to run. So you can do both. So there's some online options to get involved as well. But right now we have 344 racers already. So we have a lot of racers. We just don't have a lot of fundraising. So I'm hoping that's step 2.
I hope so too. Okay, good.
Yes.
Where's the run going to be?
It is on main campus. So we're going to be doing a 200-meter dash, which I'm hoping that we could do on the field, the soccer field that we're so excited about, just because the little ones, we don't want them to trip on the concrete. And then we're going to be doing a 3K and 5K loops, kind of utilizing our car line. So you'll see me on campus with like a big measuring circle trying to figure the loop out this next week.
Okay.
Yeah, there's.
We have a lot of ground we can cover.
Yeah,
I know, you guys, we ordered 400 pounds of powder. We've got cool race shirts and we've got medals. Like, it's a whole thing. It's going to be amazing.
Did the kids get to see the powder?
Kathy's like, oh no.
I'm done with it, Sarah. It'll be great.
Is that even going to increase our janitorial services?
We're bringing blowers so you can blow the power off. We're having a blow off station. This was like recommended for the PTO sites, and we did purchase the powder that's for races, so it's not as clothing stainy for the parents. But if you want to stain your shirt, we're going to put like little instructions in your packet. So, and we're also having, like, when you get your race swag packet, a reusable bag, reusable straw, your numbers, and then sunglasses, just so the little ones, in case they forget to wear them, they don't get color in their eyes. That would not be fun. So color run is happening. It's all the things.
No more questions. Thank you.
You guys are welcome. Have a good night.
All right, thanks, Sarah. Good night. All righty, let's see. Where are we ending up with our agenda? So any committee updates?
Hey, Kristen.
Hey, Marissa.
Hey. So a couple things. We did. Now I feel bad talking about grants since we had a long discussion about double-edged sword of grants. But we did have our first kickoff meeting on Monday the 2nd, and just to kind of remind people kind of our mission, we're going after looking at funding for a van or transport so that we could utilize that since we don't have a CDL driver for our school bus. And so I had 3 people in the meeting. We're still actively pursuing others. So anyone on the line who has experience with writing grants or going after grants, we would love to have you. We have reached out to others to see if they're interested. Yeah, so I mean, with the focus of the van, you know, we're looking at different angles of how we could pursue grants, and it sounds like Heather's been extremely busy. So there's like an email out there of like how we can get the information to know about like our sports clubs, teams, their demographics, to see like what we could be eligible for, because there's organizations like that, you know, USA Track and Field that like to sponsor running clubs. And so like would we qualify for that? And we would be able to cover transportation. So just looking at different angles of what we would, you know, the sniff test of would we even qualify for this, and then also need to talk through kind of the process, right? So have a process in here of like a double hurdle of, you know, we feel like we could qualify for this. What does school leadership feel? Should we proceed? And then second hurdle, okay, we've drafted it, you know, probably want to take a look at it before it's submitted, that type of thing. So in very early phases, but that has started. And then I haven't made it progress past last month on the kind of giving campaign. I think we had discussed about going towards foundation, but that we needed a banking account for that. So just kind of in a holding pattern to see where we're going to end up with that.
Heather and I did discuss the foundation bank account briefly today. I don't think it's the top of her finance priority list.
Right.
It is on the list of things to do in the not too distant future.
Okay.
And is
Thank
that
you.
something, Marissa, we were talking about for the Giving Tuesday? Are we still thinking there's an opportunity to try to get, we're just looking for a place for the money to go, right?
Yeah. I just, you know, to fill out the rest of the input, you know, the back end of it, you know, it's like you can't go further until you link up to banking information. So yeah, I mean, I still would like that to be the goal, is to get everything kicked off in time to have a push for Giving Tuesday, which is, you know, after Thanksgiving. But you know, I also know there's a lot going on, so that's still the goal if we can make it.
Okay.
I think as far as the bank, I mean, I don't know, we want a separate banking account, or do we want an internal account with that set aside? How do you all want to run that?
I think you need a separate bank account if you're gonna use it.
Okay.
But in the current circumstances, I'm not sure why we wouldn't want donations to come directly to the school. Just in the general fund for now.
Yeah.
We're at a big campaign and one of the earmark funds are having a down or something like that. Foundation's a great idea and it's important. We should take some time to look at that over the next year, but I think if we got, you know, a 5-figure sum of donations this year, we'd find a way to use it in the current budget.
I'll say, do we have to have a bank account? I mean, is there a place it could go that is easier, given all
I
the
mean, it's
activity?
always gone to our general fund. That's
Yeah.
why we
Could
don't
we
have a
just do
separate
that for the
Sandwich
interim, just so we
Foundation
kind of
fund.
have
Yeah.
somewhere for this money to go, and then we kind of figure out the
How do you want,
plan?
I think that is fine. We just want to make sure that we mark it for how we want it spent. Do you want it for operating, or do you, so that's the only thing, and then we can internally set it. Kind of like what we're gonna set up with field trips, where that it may come into our bank account, but we know when that hits, this is going over here. And that's, so then when staff comes, we don't have to say, well, I don't know where the field trip, here it is, and this is how much left, what it's for.
And I wonder if short term, it's better to set Marissa up with just moving forward with the general fund at the time being.
Mhm.
Earmark this is a conversation, January, February kind of thing. You can dive
Yeah.
deeper on it, saying, okay, we made it through some of the other top priorities.
Mhm.
Now let's dive a little bit deeper into, what sort of momentum are we actually seeing for this sort of revenue? How much do we want to earmark? How much do we want to?
I guess I would just, given the conversation we've had, I would hate for something to hold us up with trying to
Get
put a
additional
call out.
dollars.
Yeah, get something going again.
Yeah.
If we can just
Because as far as
place it
opening the
somewhere.
bank, I did go to Wells Fargo, been there multiple times, getting everything switched over. I think it's just whoever wants to be on the account, you would go, just almost like you were opening up so that would be probably people from the board wanting to go and do that. But if you want it to come in our account, then that's fine too. And then we can work through.
Did we complete the registration with the State Department of Agriculture for the foundation and all?
I did, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I
I
think
think we've been paying for it to renew every year.
it
So
seems to me
there.
that for the time being, placing the cash with the foundation and another layer of approvals to get it back into the school.
Yeah.
And look, if somebody calls us up and says, I got $1 million to donate, and we're all like, well,
Go down to Wells Fargo.
Yeah, so.
Yeah, exactly.
But until we've squared away operations without a negative fund balance and have, this could be the supplemental trust indenture bond covenant campaign of 2023.
People get real excited about that one.
I really know how to
Give a
craft
latte.
the campaign.
A latte to fill apart.
I'll make
That you're
t-shirts.
serving.
But just-
Bond coming in clutch.
Yeah. Okay.
I would agree. I think unless we have a specific capital level thing that we're trying to fund for, like just roll it into the general fund for now.
Okay.
Well, I do think that it's, once we have that comfort, then it's science lab and things like that.
Right.
I mean, we can
talk about
track
this.
where the money is coming from, right? We can track if it comes in through this link that's being set up, right, Marissa?
It should be transferred through Zeppi, I would think.
Okay.
But we do have a whole campaign of what we're going after, just as a reminder. Unless we're changing directions on that with regards to like the soft seating for the high school and the beat the heat for IMO.
Yeah, that was reviewed at the end of the meeting.
I think those are the goals, but it's still going into the same general fund, but.
Yeah.
My point is if we're gonna fundraise with saying we're gonna do specific things with the money, then we just need to make sure we have that money somewhere that we go do those specific things with it. And don't just say, well, I got.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So there's a bond coming in.
Question to ask our accountant is to make sure what their bank reconciliation looks like. Oftentimes the actual details on, when they go and pull the bank, it's no different than when you go and look at your own bank and you're like, oh, look, $300 from.
Yeah.
Like, my guess is the Facebook campaign is probably actually gonna have somewhat useful information. It probably is a little bit more. The big companies tend to be better. Like if you send someone money from Zelle, it actually has that person's name on it.
That's what I'm thinking. Like, I'm sure the Zeppi site has a lot of back reporting.
Yeah, well, the back end reporting on that site might be okay, but our bank may not actually, right? Like Wells Fargo may just say deposit
It does.
$300.
Even if,
So-
even if they
Okay.
do, once it gets
They
into
say
your,
exactly
to your
your
bank
right?
account, it's like your personal
Whatever
account.
else there.
If $1,000
Yeah,
shows up in your
parent
personal
company.
account, it can very
Yeah,
easily
the
get
parent company.
mixed in with other stuff and you forgot, oh yes. $10,000 for something else. So I was supposed to spend it
So
on it.
that's the question for accountants to
That's like-
understand a little bit more on that.
Mhm.
It may be that he doesn't have good details on it, and then it would be better to say, let's get the foundation account set
Okay.
up sooner, and that way Marissa can go and raise this $50,000, and we'll be like, yeah, we reached your program. Let's do
Yeah.
it.
Well, we're gonna be the first people to donate when this link comes up, right? Yay!
Yeah, we got to start with money on the
Yeah.
little chart, right?
Yay, forward.
Yeah, I'll
Don't
find
forget
out
your
for sure.
commitment.
Lily may already know that answer. So I'll find out.
And a reminder.
Always willing to donate my board salary for
Such a giver.
Okay, so we're gonna move on that general fund for the moment.
I think so.
And
Marissa,
figure
I
it out.
apologize. I see your email. I read it. It's one of those things, you read and then you think you respond and you realize you didn't. I will get all that information to you as soon as possible.
Okay, awesome. Thank you, Heather.
I also have a quick update on, there is a recruiting call out right now for interest for new board members. So that went out a couple weeks ago as a standalone message on Parent Square. Again, putting a call out to the community. If you or others that you know would love to be here at this table having these kinds of discussions. Obviously, we contribute in a lot of different ways. We're very excited to receive resumes. So we are following the same process that we have been using in prior years. So we did, kind of deem it a nominating committee, but the idea just being that anyone involved in the process of reviewing, who is interested. Typically, we ask for the resume, the cover letter, review that. Why are you interested? How are you looking to contribute? Thinking that we're all succession planning for who will be our future.
Any interest yet?
No interest yet. So tell your friends and
did you talk about
reach
the
out,
pay, Kristen? And the
It is truly a really rewarding position. I have been on the board for quite some time, as you all know, and I do believe that it is something really, really it really exercises a lot of different skills that I know all of you in this community have out there, and allows you to form some great partnerships and yeah, it's great. And also you don't have to be at the school all the time during the day, which is good for schedules sometimes for folks, sometimes just evening meetings. So that more feasible. So tell your friends. I was kind of putting a date around it to say if we could get interest by the November meeting, just to put a deadline for folks. It'd be great. Anyone who wants to come out to our meetings, we are here. We are in the conference room at IMO. We're happy to meet you and talk with you. But there is a multi-step process. Once we get that resume, we again want you to be attending these meetings to get a sense of how this all works and flows. And then we would decide at that point who we would interview. And go from there. So, but that's all outlined. So I just wanted to gauge the group. Sound okay? Any process changes that we would want to consider? Are we feeling good about how we're planning to handle the volume of interested candidates that I'm sure we'll get? I'm hoping that we'll get.
Where are we within the last board candidate that we had that we were interested in that we had a path for? Like, did she follow up with him?
I saw him at work and asked as well.
Yes, yes.
Did
He
you hear
just
anything
gotten
about
back
that?
from a long trip to Europe and was, questioning involvement in all things except for traveling the world.
Oh, not a good time to ask. When the moment is right. maybe
Right.
we should
I'll try him
inquire.
again when he's,
yeah, was he hooked that back in?
yeah. Why do I do this work thing every day? Like, so you can go on those long trips to Europe. Yeah. And I'm hoping that we'll have many people listen because I'm looking at the guest list of who's on right now, and it's almost all staff.
I hope you're all watching recordings.
You
Okay,
can tell it's the
president's
second month of the
update.
year,
I
and all the
know.
drama's settled, and everyone's forgotten. They're like,
Well, everything's going
we
great.
got homework to
Nobody
do,
on
and
the
we need to
board
go to
meeting.
bed. Like,
Start putting out the call about the middle school move, and we'll get a lot more interest.
No, it's going to go very smoothly.
No, it's gonna be
Like
it's gonna
I am
be a
determined that that's going to go.
We are
smooth.
over the worst.
Yes,
It's just
we are in this together. And it's not going to be bad.
Yeah.
and we weren't.
Yeah.
Okay, are we formally adjourning? I do believe at 8:59. Okay, thank you all. Good night.
Night, everyone.
Good night. Thank
Bye,
you.
Larissa.
Bye.
Bye.